All right, CW Flash fans. Now, I know I haven't made a video in a while, but I, the fact that this week is about the mid-season finales, just know that I will be doing videos during the hiatus, just to keep the channel going. But I feel like the most popular channel, well, excuse me, the most popular video on this channel has been my "Why Do Fans Hate Iris West?" And again, this channel is really new, but that video did pretty well. So this video is really about why is Iris West team leader. Now, I think I talked about this before in my other video about Iris West, but I want to be honest here. Like, at first it didn't really rub me the wrong way in terms of her being team leader. Like, trust me, I wasn't all for it, but at this point in the last episode, Don't Run, we just got this dilemma where Iris has to make the tough call and, about her choosing between saving Caitlyn and saving Barry. And I'm still not buying it. I'm sorry. Again, I don't hate Iris West. I don't hate Iris. As I said before, Candace is doing the best she can with the material that she's given from the writers, but I'm just not feeling Iris this season. Like last season, I really didn't mind Iris at all. If anything, she was just utilized as a plot device, so it wasn't her fault. But this season, it's almost like everybody who's been saying, like, dang, Savitar should have killed her. It's like, what's the point? I don't see why the least experienced member of Team Flash is the team leader. I'm sorry, I just can't see that. Now, if anything, even Ralph could be the team leader. Hear me out on this one, because even he's more experienced in terms of being a detective, a private eye, a cop. And it just killed me, the fact that it was this forced drama, like this tension in terms of, oh my gosh, it's like, we're going to search for both of them. We're going to search for Barry. We're going to search for Caitlyn. And then, Cisco and Ralph are at odds over that whole misunderstanding about Ralph running his mouth and then causing Caitlyn to go. And because he caused Caitlyn to go to Jitters and leave Star Labs, that's how she got kidnapped. I think that was a very bad way of writing that scene. Here's how I would have interpreted it. Like, let's say that Cisco, because we even touched upon this when he had that heart-to-heart with Ralph and they kind of made up. It's like, look, I mean, I don't want to lose Caitlyn or Barry because we've already lost them both before, Barry in the Speed Force, and then Caitlyn last season when she had the Killer Frost thing going on. Not to mention season 2 when Zoom took her away. So it would have made sense for, Iris to say, like, hey, we're going to search for Caitlyn because she is in a vulnerable state, and then Barry can take care of himself, and then have Cisco being the one to say, no, I want to look for them both because we lost them both. Because even though Iris and Barry just got married, so obviously that relationship is more important, her and Caitlyn kind of just became friends, because Caitlyn even mentioned it earlier this season. It's like, we really aren't even friends. I mean, like, how long have we even hung out together outside of catching metahumans or whatnot? So it really kind of, I didn't really get it when she was like, Caitlyn's my best friend, and then Barry's my husband. It's kind of like, well, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, you literally said your vows through sickness and in health to death do you part, and then it's like you want to choose Caitlyn. Not to say that wasn't the right choice, it's just like her logic really didn't make sense to me, because again, I would have thought Cisco would have been the one to really have the dilemma going on. But here's one reason I'm not really feeling Iris this season. It's just because she's made to be team leader. I feel like in order for her to have those moments where it's like, hey, here's what we should do, and it turns out she's right, and then it's like, oh, okay, that's why she's team leader. In order for her to make those calls, it's like everyone around her has to be dumbed down. Like when Barry was, I believe, episode 2 or 3, when Barry had the suit malfunctions, when Cisco had all that upgraded tech. Pretty much he had like an Iron Flash suit, so to speak, like a Tony Stark thing, where the guy with the technology control powers was taking over the suit and it was about to self-destruct, and then Barry's just running around like a chicken with his head cut off. And it's like, for him to be put in that situation, and then Iris having to be the one, hey, use Thunderbolt on yourself, pretty much like Ash telling Pikachu to use Thunderbolt on himself in the anime or something like that. And then it turns out to be right, and then it's like, oh my gosh, Iris, I'm so sorry I didn't listen to you. And then even in this episode where Harry is the one to give Iris the wake up calls, like, look, it's your fault everybody's on edge because you're stretching yourselves out too thin and you have to make a tough call. It's like, you said look for them both. That's not a decision. You just stated, hey, we're going to do what we need to do, instead of talking about what needs to be done, which is finding one person at a time. And again, this is where I feel like Cisco should have been the one to have that dilemma in terms of, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because his devices aren't working. He can't vibe, where Barry is, and then have Ralph step in and then say, hey, we're stretching ourselves too thin. Again, it would have been, even though it would have been a cheesy joke, it would have been a great way for Cisco and Ralph to have a moment to make Ralph. That's why I like Ralph. I just hate how they were making him this annoying side character rather than a team member. It's like this entire episode, when everybody's being serious, he's just making these jokes, and it's like, this guy is smarter than this. He can actually help out and be useful, but they're just making him this running gag, this comedic side character, where again, he could have stepped up to Cisco's like, hey, we're stretching ourselves too thin, like he could have stretched his arm or something in a little comedic fashion, but then have Cisco chuckle and be like, hey, you know what, you're right. And then Ralph could have been like, look, let's just focus on finding one of these one of these guys at a time. And then they could have came to the conclusion, yeah, you're right, because Caitlin had that device on her that stopped her metahuman powers. So it's like, okay, let's search for her first, and then Barry, being a speedster, he can hold his own for now, and then we'll search for him afterwards. That would have been great, instead of making it where it's like an Iris moment where she's the one to make the decision, and then that leads to them saving Caitlin, and then Barry saving himself. And another thing I have is, again, at the very end of the episode, where she's like, oh gosh, I don't know how much longer I can do this, making these tough decisions. And it's just like, she gets a kiss from Barry, and it's just like, I remember seeing on a Facebook or Twitter somewhere where somebody said, it's a shame. Iris makes a tough call, and, she gets a kiss. Barry makes a tough call, and then he usually gets lashed out for it. I thought that was really funny. But here's another thing. If we're going back to the episode where it was like the bachelor and bachelorette parties, I think it was called Girls Night Out. Remember when Iris stopped Killer Frost from killing Amunet Black, who I'm very tempted to just label the bucket lady, because again, the fact she has to carry that bucket with the specialized metal to be threatening. Again, that's every time I see her, I think about the bucket lady. Just a name I made up. But remember, she told Killer Frost not to kill her, to not live up to the killer part of her name. But the fact that she let them go, they let her walk free after threatening to come back after Caitlin and Killer Frost later, it's just like, nobody could have, knocked her out, put her in the pipeline. You literally know this person has like this operation going on. Like, literally the premise of the episode was her quote unquote drug operation, using that metahuman's tears to create that addictive substance. And it's just like, you literally going to let her walk and then be surprised when she comes back. So even though it was written so Cisco blames Ralph for Caitlin getting kidnapped, you have to look at Iris being the one to let her go to begin with. So it's just like the domino effect where Iris made quote unquote a tough decision, and by doing so, she put Caitlin's life in danger. So I don't know. So I'm just okay. So I'm going to cut this video off. This is really my 2 cents on the Iris plot. I really don't see why she is team leader. If anything, I think it's only been done this season, so the Iris and Barry relationship is a parallel to the thinker and the mechanic relationship, where they're partners, where you had the thinker, the one with the abilities, and then the mechanic, the one who, she builds everything, and that's his wife. So they're a couple. But in terms of Iris and Barry, I really don't see it. I feel like Joe, or heck, have Harry come back and be team leader, considering that Harry got kicked off, quote unquote, kicked from Earth 2. Kicked off his team, Jesse Quick, if you will, for being, more like a taskmaster than, like a real team leader. Like, I feel like that would have been a great way to have Harry reintroduced back into Earth 1 in terms of, like being the Harrison Wells, but like, Harry of Team Flash, where, you have the Flash, but he's the man behind the man in the chair, if you want to say that. Because Iris West, I really feel like it was better when she was the news reporter, and she was like Joe in terms of, hey, I have a life outside of Team Flash. And in this life, be it the CCPD for Joe, and then the newspaper or whatnot for Iris, they can utilize their connections to be helpful, which is, again, an extension of their comic book counterparts, like Iris West working for the news media, and then using her contacts to help out the team. That's what I feel like. But to just have her shoehorned in as the team leader, and then having everybody else kind of dumbed down just so she looks good, isn't a good fit for me. So those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you like Iris as team leader? Do you hate her as team leader? Like, again, I don't hate Iris. I just don't like what they're doing with their character this season. So again, please subscribe for more Flash content, and I'll talk to you in the next video.